Hi, everybody. It is December 2nd, 2020. I'm trying to make this video for posterity to explain kind of what has happened over this year. Um, it's a very crazy year, as everybody knows is. Um, it started out as, well, let's face it, these last 4 years have been just absolutely crazy. Just everything's not normal. And people like me, and there's a lot of us out there that sometimes we're called conspiracy theorists, but we all try to figure out what's going on behind the scenes, like the story behind the story. We're just kind of like, in a sense, investigative reporters, but we basically keep it to ourselves for the most part, or sometimes we might try to tell some friends about it. Um, Now that there's social media, sometimes we post our opinions or our thoughts on that. But what we've been noticing is there's lots of censorship of anybody that wants to say anything different than what uh, the mainstream media or basically what's the agenda of what's going on. And what started out this year as uh, an illness, let me put it that way. I can't say be too honest and open here because if I try to post this on any sort of public um, social media or anything, it's going to get red flagged and taken down. So I'm trying to say this in a way that I can try to post it. Probably won't last very long. Um, anyway, so what has happened was, if you look it up, a lot of the sort of globalist countries, United Nations, One World Order, those type of countries, they've been having, it's kind of like war games or basically war scenarios or different scenarios that they would play out. They usually advertise in advance or go through it a few years ago before they implement something like this. So they basically already have told us they had planned on doing some sort of world pandemic exercise. So this is kind of, in a sense, what we've been going through. We've been going through a psychological operation. Started out early in the year with this um, illness. Let me put it that way, with flu-like symptoms, and they it started out in China, is what we were told. And that's another thing. It's pretty hard to believe anything verbatim anymore because there's a lot of hidden agendas. But so we're told that there was like some sort of flu that started in China and people were getting really sick and dropping like flies, and it's really contagious. Then it started moving to Europe, and then they started to move to the Americas. Um, so the governments that are participating in this exercise and not telling us about it basically told us that we have to lock down and shut down our businesses and things like that. So this has been kind of going on, and even though people like me have been going, well, I'm not sure about this, and I'm going to look more into it and try to figure out what's really going on. One of the first things that happened for me, anyway, is I started realizing, well, I know because I had the flu in February, and it lasted about a week. I was sick, pretty sick for about 3 days. I realized, okay, that's the kind of the normal flu that goes around every year. Knew a bunch of people that had it. Well, suddenly that flu disappeared, and I kind of wonder what happened to it. Just like it just kind of fizzled out. But along came this new strain, which took up everybody's attention, and it was supposedly worse, but it really isn't. But at the time, everybody was panicking, and they were put into a state of fear, and we were told from the get-go that this is a pandemic. How do you know it's a pandemic? Because you obviously had some sort of inside information, and that's what you're promoting now. So the mainstream media, which we all know if you do any research at all, is run by 6 corporations. Basically, it's 6 people that are kind of owners of all those, and they're all in on this. Better way to put it, I guess, would be psychological war games, kind of. And they're, yeah, by the looks of it, it was meant to see, first of all, if they can pull it off, if people will fall for it, and how far they can go with it. And then I know there's a bunch of other agendas behind that, but I'm not going to go into that in this particular video. I'm just going to kind of give you a play-by-play. What happened was, once they made everybody fearful of this, and with the power of suggestion, very strong suggestion, I'll put it that way, it's kind of a mind control thing going on here. It's like a form of real mild hypnosis through the media. But if they tell somebody something, like this is a pandemic, and they keep saying it over and over and over again, we also understand that's how propaganda works, is if you say a lie over and over and over again enough, people will start believing it. Well, especially when most people are naive and gullible enough to think that mainstream media is some sort of reliable. We think that they're, in our minds, we think they're supposed to be very responsible journalists, and that's not the case. Again, if you do research on that, you'll find out that they've changed the laws on that decades ago. That mainstream media is not necessarily responsible for telling the truth. It's really known as a form of entertainment, and it can be used as propaganda, which of course it always is. So it always makes you wonder, well, who's behind it? Like, what agenda are they pushing? Anyway, I'm trying to stay away from trying to make this as complicated, but I'm simply saying that this operation was put into motion, put into action, and since that time, we're starting to figure out, well, if it's as bad as they say it is, people aren't that stupid. We're going to go to a hospital and take a look. A lot of people are sort of looking at these hospitals going, well, in their minds, what we're told is we're overflowing with patients, and people are dying all over the place in the aisles. But people have been going to hospitals and realizing, gee, it's mostly empty. It's like, so what's going on? And if they try to report something like that, that truth is taken down immediately, or as soon as possible. Anybody speaking against this operation, and that's kind of how I see it, what it basically is now. It's a worldwide war game scenario, but instead of a physical battle with bombs and guns, it's basically psychological warfare. And what they're trying to do is to see if they can make people not only conform and consent to self-isolation, things like that. So their first attempt at this was to shut down businesses and basically tell everybody, stay away from each other. Started out mostly as a social distancing thing. Then they tried to convince us that it's like even as breathing, we're spreading it around. So we got to put masks on. It started making me laugh right away. It's like, wow. I mean, if you're assuming that everybody's got it right away. It's like, if I'm not allowed to breathe on my neighbor, that's basically assuming that I've got it. And what if I don't have it? You know what I mean? So now we have 2 people looking at each other with masks on saying, you're about to give it to me, aren't you? Like, whatever. And then also you try to stay away from each other, social distancing, and she'd go to work. Anyway, to me, I was watching this all play out and going, come on, you guys, we're getting punked. We're being told something that's not true. And not only that, but also for me, I'm going, well, what happened to the regular flu? How come you're calling it a scary name with the number on it, number 19 or something? Um, so as I'm watching this play out, there's a lot of I mean I'm doing research online and things like that and talking to people. There's a lot of us that are kind of aware of like, well, this is a very strange occurrence, and it's yeah, it's like and it's worldwide. And what's with these governments? They're all in on it, except for someone that's trying to fight against it here in the United States. But again, he's got to play along with it. So somehow this operation was going to carry on to see how far it went. Well, eventually they realized they can't uh, they can't fake it for too long. So they realized as the numbers were going down throughout the spring and summer, they realized okay, well, people are starting to realize the hospitals aren't full, people aren't dying as much as they were hoping people would. Or again, I want to sort of backtrack a little bit with the psychological operation on that was to reveal to the world in a scary way that people actually do die every year of the cold and the flu. Most people, to be honest, they're not even aware of that. I mean, they might have heard about, their grandfather and got pneumonia and in his care center and died, whatever. And in reality, he probably had the flu or something, and he died of that. So there's been numbers like that. Statistics have been around to show that people die of flu and the cold every year, but most people just are not aware of it. Like things have been way worse in the past. So people like me are looking into it, going, okay, well, if that's the case, how many people in the past have died of the flu or the cold? And I find out there's a lot, tens of thousands every year. But it's not ever talked about in the media. Well, this time it was really, really extremely exaggerated in the media. Like we were told that people are dropping like flies, which is not the case at all. Anyway, so as things went on, they realized, well, people aren't really buying in it too much, so they had to kind of scare us in the way that saying, well, you probably have it and you don't even know you have it, so you're asymptomatic. So again, it creates fear, and everybody's like looking at each other like, well, you look like you're a healthy person, but you're just completely consumed with this disease, and I'm going to get it, so stay away from me, and whatever. So a lot of people, as you noticed, a lot of people bought into this. So now you've got a scenario where people they started to test for it. They said, well, you should just get tested because you can't be too sure. I know you don't feel sick at all, but what if you have it? So they started really ramping up the tests starting in this summer, and it's ongoing. And when you look into that, first of all, these tests that they're doing, it's like a test that could show a green light if you have not only any sort of flu symptom, but if you've got a cold, or if you had a cold a year ago, it might go off, whatever. So they're very unreliable as far as trying to find that particular C19 thing. And so what they realized is they just gotta have to just say, okay, there's lots of positive tests. But in reality, they always ended up sort of having to take those numbers back on, okay, it was a false positive. So you've got like, let's say out of 100 people testing, you got 90% of them testing positive, but only out of that 90, there's only like maybe 80% that was a legitimate positive. It was a false positive. 80% were false positives. So in other words, it came back, it's like, oh no, false alarm. But still, they don't tell you that at all. They just keep going on with this thing about, well, there's so many people, and then they just keep exaggerating it with this over the mainstream media. So you can tell that the mainstream media is in on this Psy Op. It's a psychological operation to see how far they can make people believe this and comply. So now, and obviously the governors are in on it. Well, not all of them. Some of them caught on fairly quickly. But anyway, so let's say most of the world leaders that are in on this operation are going along with it and promoting it. So now here we are near the end of the year. Guess what happens usually in fall and winter time? Well, the yearly flu comes along. So now we've got a second wave, but it's even, I think it's going to be worse than the first one. So look out, whatever. So keep wearing your masks, which again, if you do any research, that the masks are, okay, whatever. I don't even want to argue about that. But let me put it this way, they really help against dust. I know because I use one in the shop. They kind of help against the dust. You still get a little bit of dust in there, when you're working throughout the day. So now here we are. We've got these mandates and we're supposed to comply and do this. The way I see things playing out, I know this is going to end probably by the end of this year, but this was, to me, a ridiculous operation of the emperor's got new clothes operation. Maybe that's what it's called secretly. I don't know, but it was a way to see if they can convince the world and comply and do whatever they want and see how easily manipulated human beings are. Well, as you can see, it kind of turned out pretty good for them. Now, as far as what they're up to with this psychological operation, is kind of a biological war game thing that they're sort of simulating. It's pretty interesting how it played out. I've got a lot of ideas on kind of what they're up to, but the main thing is it's about control. It's about to see how easily manipulated and how controllable we really are, and how many. It's like almost like watching the percentages, like how many people caught on quickly, how many people didn't, how many people are willing to just follow rules blindly, things like that. So basically, that's kind of, I want to just do some sort of, for posterity reasons, just to make this little video to kind of show that not all of us fell for this psychological operation. But as this year starts to wrap up, I think they're going to basically take all that data and, I don't know, maybe they're going to do a worse version in the future if we don't wake up and realize we're being played. So we'll see how far this goes, and I'll probably make another video on my opinion on what this has all been all about. Anyway, this is kind of just for posterity, like I said. I'll make another video in the future. Okay, see you later. Bye.